But what about atheism? What about atheism? Well, it turns out examples of evil in the world actually show that atheism is false too.
I see. So your allegedly all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving God being aware of, but not preventing evil, is proof of his existence. Makes perfect sense. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. Meet Tim Barnett, who seems to think he's got a knockdown argument against atheism. However, as you'll soon see, his argument holds water about as well as a torn pasta strainer. Have a look.
Yeah, you heard me right. If evil's real, then atheism is false. Evil actually proves that God exists. It doesn't disprove his existence. Let me show you.
Ooh, I'm practically wetting myself with anticipation.
Most people recognize for there to be a universal, objective, moral law that's out there, that's outside of me or a culture, then an absolute moral lawgiver must exist.
Absolutely, completely, 100% false. If something is objective, that means that it is not the creation of any mind, that it is entirely free of subjectivity whatsoever. And if there is a moral lawgiver, those laws given are by definition a product of a mind, in this example's case, God's mind. And that makes the laws subjective. For morality to be objective, it would have to have existed entirely regardless of a deity's influence. And that's only the first flaw in his argument, though you have to admit, it's quite a doozy.
However, if God does not exist, then there is no objective moral standards. Therefore, atheists are left with moral relativism.
That's true. And it's what most closely fits the available data with regard to morality. And you know what? I'm mostly okay with that. Sure, it can be a little scary and uncertain at times. And that's also the reason I hypothesize that theists prefer their biblical rulebook to reality.
Moral relativism says there's no objective moral values and duties. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no evil. Okay, that's moral relativism. Things are just right for you, but maybe not right for me. Okay?
And along with that comes empathy. If each person holds their own individual moral code, and we violate that code or they violate ours, it's rather difficult to remain friends. And most people value that friendship. Fortunately, there's a ton of overlap between people's individual codes, and that helps us all get along. And when we violate that overlap far too much, well, that's what we have the police for. Again, yes, it's irregular, maybe a little scary, and forces us to improvise, but the alternative is living by a God-said-so moral code, and one for which we have no actual evidence of that God's existence. Thanks, but no thanks.
That's where atheism leads. Consistent atheism says there is no evil, there is no good.
Uh-huh. And? Is your argument anything other than it can't be like that because you don't like it?
You see where this leads? It's all just emotions and likes and dislikes. But if it's just likes and dislikes, how do you say that's wrong? I mean, imagine someone said, well, I like vanilla ice cream. Whoa! What's wrong with you? That's wrong!
No, it's not. If you do it right, vanilla is such an amazing flavor. I'll never understand how people can claim that it's plain.
It's kind of like this. Imagine this conversation with an atheist. The atheist says, I can't believe in God. Why not? Brussels sprouts. Wait, what's the problem with, what's the problem? Have you tasted those things? They're disgusting. I can't believe in a God who would make something so distasteful to me. How foolish is that?
Okay, that's a pretty terrible example, basically argumentum ad absurdum. But still, an all-knowing and all-loving God with powers to match would probably have made the nutritious foods taste frickin' amazing, don't you think? Or make our taste buds think so anyway. Kind of how a loving God would probably not let us get cancer, or threaten us with eternal damnation for finite trespasses. Doesn't sound very loving to me. Does it to you?
And so for there to be a real problem of evil, morality has to be objective, not subjective. But if there is this objective moral standard, then actually God must exist.
Actually, nope. It doesn't work that way. Because the problem of evil is actually using the religious assertion about good and evil against itself. It's not a claim being made by atheists about the nature of good or evil. It's pointing out that your own dogma makes contradictory claims. For example, thou shalt not kill is one of the 10 commandments, and God basically murders off the entire planet during Noah's flood. And that's just one example. There are tons of others. Sodom and Gomorrah, anyone? The problem of evil is that your God makes claims about what is good and then violates the ever-loving crap out of them, and sometimes orders humans to do so as well, like with girls who lose their virginity before marriage. If your dogma never made the claim that God is supposed to be omnibenevolent, if you flat out said that sometimes he can be a real dick, the problem of evil would never come up.
If things like racism and murder and abuse are really evil, objectively, not just personal preferences like ice cream,
well, those aren't objective standards. It's just that large portions of humanity agree with them because it's mutually beneficial, and that makes them seem objective.
Then there must be an objective moral standard, and that transcendent moral standard that applies to everyone is God. It's actually his nature.
Oh, really? Why should anybody believe that? As I pointed out before, if God knowingly came up with these laws, they'd be subjective. And as I pointed out before, if it's his nature, he violates it a lot. But if it is his nature, who's to say that he is necessary? What if it was the universe's nature, no God required? Can you prove that's not the case? After you've proved that this objective morality even exists? You have a lot of work ahead of you, guy. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please, think. Reading videos has been found to cause fresher breath, enhanced metabolism, and greater sexual magnetism.